Hi, today I'm on chapter 6 and on my favorite topic, keepers at home. I get the most backlash on this subject and all the what ifs, but I love teaching it because I received many private messages and emails from women telling me they have quit their jobs, they're home full time, and they're just so much more content and happy just in the role that God has provided for them. I was in the workforce from the time I was 16. I was a waitress in the summers, and even when I was married and going to college to get my credential, I was a waitress at night, and every single summer, all summer long, I was a waitress. And I always felt like a fish out of water in the workforce, even as a teacher, leaving my home every morning, my baby, or being pregnant or nursing, teaching a bunch of children and being exhausted afterwards. I just didn't like being in the workforce ever. I was so thankful when I realized that my heart's desire to be home was God's desire for me. So anyway, let's start on this. Okay, this topic is one that I receive the most criticism for teaching because most churches don't even teach young women to be keepers at home. They teach them to be career women. They don't ever combat that at all. It's not popular in our day and age to teach women to be home with their children instead of having a career, but it's what God commands older women to teach young women, so I do. Where is a woman commanded to work in the Bible? Look up these verses, Titus 2:5. Older women are to teach the younger women to be keepers at home so they do not blaspheme the word of God. People say, oh, that's so harsh. Yeah, God was harsh because he meant what he said. He was blunt. He knows, he created us. He knows where we're to be, where our work is to be, where we're safest and most protected, and where we're a fish in water. 1 Timothy 5:14, God says, I command that the young women marry, bear children, and guide the home so they don't bring reproach from the enemy. Psalms 113:9, he makes the barren woman to be a joyful mother of home and to keep house. The Proverbs 31 woman, who always people bring up as a career woman, and she was not a career woman. She did not leave her home every day for hours every day, her children in the care of others in daycare, and go work for a boss and a paycheck. I'm sorry, that just was not the Proverbs 31 woman. Many want to believe she was a career woman. This is a modern day fable. What are the two things she was known for? Well, number one, she was known for looking well to the ways of her household. This is what she was known for, not for having a career, not for making money. She was known for looking well to the ways of her household. We are to look well to the ways of our household. And she was also known for not eating the bread of idleness. It's so easy to get lazy at home and not be motivated. But our motivation should come from within, knowing that this is what God has called us to do, to be hard workers at home, to keep our house, to guide our house, to keep it clean and tidy, to care for our children and our husbands, fix some good healthy food, make sure their clothes are clean. And there's a lot of work to being a keeper at home. There's no way you can have a career and be a good keeper at home and a good mother and a good wife. Something always suffers, and it's usually the marriage, first of all. Children, mother, everyone suffers. So not eating the bread of idleness. What takes up our time? Our phones. God said in 1 Timothy 5 that he wanted the young widows to marry, guide the home, because they had a horrible habit of going from home to home, tattling, saying things they ought not. God wants us in our home and working hard and staying busy. This keeps us out of trouble because we have a tendency to talk too much and say things that we shouldn't. And even in the workforce, women do that. But if we're home, we're too busy caring for our children and our husbands and our home to do that. If we're doing that, if we're being obedient and disciplined to the Lord. How important is working hard for the Lord? Look up the following verses and summarize. Colossians 3:23 says, whatsoever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord. Women, when you're washing dishes, do it heartily as to the Lord, thanking the Lord that you have dishes thanking the Lord for the food that you have to put on those dishes, thanking the Lord for the family that you feed on those dishes. Same with the clothes. Do everything heartily and with a thankful heart. Thankful that you have a home to clean, beds to make, sheets to clean. It's all a matter of our attitude our work is. All work can be boring and humdrum, or it could be, you can do it heartily and as to the Lord, and being thankful and grateful what he's given to us. And then Psalms 13:4 says, the soul of the diligent shall be made fat. God's will for us is to work hard. He doesn't want us to be lazy and idle. I've heard the saying that idle hands make the devil's playground. All these kids just sitting around, bored, playing on their iPhones all day and get, video games. Give your kids work to do. Teach them to be hard workers. And the best time to teach your little daughters to clean and to be keepers at home is when they're little, because they want to help you. My two of my granddaughters are not my oldest. They're 7 and 5. But their mom, every night after dinner, they have to help her clean up, do the dishes, because they have 6 children total. And they help do the dishes and vacuum. So they've done that for me a couple times. At the end of the day, they'll clean the table, vacuum for me. It's just wonderful. And they do it so cheerfully. And I talked to them, I said, when you're doing this, you're pleasing the Lord. You're serving the Lord. He wants you to serve others, because the greatest of all is the servant of all. And I have found so much more joy in serving others than expecting to be served. What were some of the specific activities the Proverbs 31 woman did in and around her home? And how can we relate to them, these things, and how can we relate them to things women can do in and around their homes? These next 5 verses or so, 6 verses, I would love to be sitting in a circle with you in my home, in my family room, and just brainstorming, instead it was just me trying to think of things. But when you put minds together, it's amazing what we can come up with. So if you can think of more things, just put them in the comment section. Proverbs 31:13. I said she works hard with her home. I didn't. Oh, you know what? I'll open the Bible and read those verses so you can know what I'm talking about, for those who don't have my study guide, and I can be reminded. Okay. All right. 31:13. Let's see. She seeketh wool and flax and worketh willingly with her hands. It's amazing back then. They had to make their own clothes. They even had to get the raw materials to make their own clothes. It was a long, hard process. They couldn't just go to a store and buy clothes. It took a lot of time and energy, and it was all natural fibers. I'm thinking of that this morning too. How wonderful petroleum is in everything, including so much of our clothes. But we only can do what we can do, right? And I was thinking what we could do in the same vein, because we don't need to, get the wool and the flax and, weave the clothes. We can sew. I sewed my children's clothes when they were little. I sewed my daughter's little Christmas dresses. I made their Halloween costumes, and I love sewing, but then it just hurt my neck too much. I just have really knit, crochet. I love doing that. Produce things in your home. I love painting. I love doing that kind of stuff. And I'm with my neck injury and everything and the fusion, I can't do a lot of that anymore. So I get to teach women instead and mentor women, which is a blessing. But for you young and healthy women, you can find things that save money and produce instead of consume. Learn to be producers instead. Because, as our economy continues to crash and things get worse, it's better if we can become a lot more self-reliant. Taiwan Gazette is a really good book. She really inspired me about living more simply and frugally and ways to save money many, many years ago. It's an old book and things are outdated, but she has a lot of good things to say if you're interested. Okay, Psalms 31:14 says, she is like the merchant ships, she bringeth her food afar. And I wrote, just be wise and a good shopper. My mom, when I was 5, she got colitis. Doctor said there was no cure. They put her on drugs. She got really sick. She said, forget this. So she went fasting on water and then on organic fruit and vegetable juices, and learned to chew her food really healthy and learned what aggravated her colon and what foods healed her colon. And after 5 years, she was completely well. She even went to a doctor to prove to them that her colon was healthy, because they said there was no cure. If drugs don't cure it, there's no cure according to them. But she cured her colitis, and she was well the rest of her life. So it took about 5 years. So when I was 10, she was better. But I was raised an organic health nut when it was totally out of fashion. She would drive 30 minutes away from home to this little health food store, and we would eat lunch there. And she would stock up on cases of apples and oranges and get lots of vegetables, and she would go far looking for the best food for us. And I have a health food store about 10 minutes away that I love, so I'm very blessed. But we lived out in the boonies where I was raised my whole childhood, and no stores were that close to us, so we had to drive far for almost everything. Like even my bus ride to school was long. Okay, the next one is Proverbs 31:15 is, she rises also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household and a portion to her maids. We don't have, we don't have maidens, most of us, and if we did, they'd be feeding us, I think. But I take this as just saying, feed your family good and nutritious food. Take the time. It takes time to fix good and nutritious food. Fast food's junky. It's full of seed oils, petroleum, and just garbage. They just get the lowest grade quality of food. Shop for the best quality of food that you can. If you can't get organic, shop the exterior of the supermarkets, because that's where the best foods, the produce, the meats, the dairy, and everything. Just buy the best food that you can, and buy real food, and then cook it. Learn to cook it healthy and be a good cook. Take the time to feed your family healthy. It's absolutely worth it. It's part of our job as being the homemaker. Proverbs 31:20. Okay, it says, she stretches out her hands to the poor. She reaches forth her hands to the needy. Help those in need, friends, family, church, neighbors. Our pastor's wife's daughter has been real sick, so I fixed them my homemade sourdough bread, a big pot of soup last week. Made them a big salad, my salad dressing, and my healthy brownies, And my daughter with her 6 children, her husband come here once a week, and while they go play pickleball and go out to eat, and I watch the children and take really good care of them. My grandkids get no junk food at my house. I feed them really healthy, because I just know health is so important, especially as our culture gets so more and more toxic. We need to do what we can to stay healthy. It still didn't prevent me having a brain tumor, my neck's bad, and my gut, and those were things outside of my control. But we just do what we can to keep our children healthy. None of my kids had allergies or asthma or anything of that growing up. They're very healthy children. Okay, 31:22. She makes herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Just dress nicely. Just look as good as you can. We don't have to wear linen and silk or whatever, but look nice. I'm not into fashion. I could care less about fashion. Like this dress I bought, I had different colors. It was on Amazon, and it's cotton, and it's so comfortable, and I love wearing them. I could live in them. I walked out of my bedroom this morning dressed in this, and I have my pajama bottoms on. My husband goes, "Are you gonna let them know you have your pajama bottoms on?" I said, "No, it's cold in the house though." We haven't turned our heater on yet. It's 62 in our house right now, but we have a big house, and and the heat just rises to the upstairs. So we only turn the heat on when our noses are cold. But we have heating pads it's the only thing we use for the microwave is to heat up our heating pads, and that keeps us warm. And we have a little heater in the bedroom that we'll use if it's cold at night. But that's why I'm wearing a sweater and my pajama bottoms and socks. Okay, Proverbs 31:24. She maketh fine linen and selleth it, and delivereth girdles unto the merchant. She made some money from her craft. She couldn't have made that many garments because it was so work intensive, and she had so many other things to care for. All of her work was in her home and around her home, and she delivered some girdles or whatever to merchants who probably passed by, and it wasn't that often, that wasn't that many. She wasn't a factory. It took her a lot of time and energy. So if you have a craft that you love and you feel like, and you have time and it's not going to take time away from your husband, your children, and your family and your home, then, make a little money on the side. That's no big deal. But if you don't have the time, a penny saved is better than a penny earned. So it's better just to learn to live simply than try to make money. But there's nothing wrong with making some money from home if you like to do that or you need to do that. And it wasn't her coworkers and a boss who rose up and called her blessed. Who was it in Proverbs 31:28? Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praised her. Her husband and children blessed her and praised her because she worked so hard in her home. Are your children and your husband going to rise up and call you blessed and praise you, women? If you're being a joyful keeper at home, working hard in your home, absolutely they will. And loving them and just doing your best. Are you perfect? No, and you're going to fail, you're going to make mistakes. But if you're mostly loving and cheerful and content, that's what's going to describe you to them in their minds. That's what they're going to think of you, not your mistakes. Kids have a lot of grace, thankfully. What is the difference between a foolish woman and a wise woman in Proverbs 14:1? A foolish woman tears her home down by being quarrelsome, contentious, idle, lazy, just not discontent, grumbling, complaining. All of those things tear your home down. Screaming, anger, they're just nothing that's good and things that you need to kick out of your life. And wise woman builds her home up by being the opposite, by having a meek and quiet spirit, by not being contentious and arguing, but being a peacemaker, pouring love and grace upon her family, forgiving easily, and modeling to them Christ, letting them see Christ live in and through you. List some ways that a foolish woman could tear her home down. I just said that, and I added moody, being ungodly, bitter. Bitterness defiles many. Don't let bitterness have any root in you, because it defiles you and those around you. Forgive quickly. Don't hold grudges, ever. My parents never did. My husband and I never do. My kids never do. We forgive quickly and easily and move on. Now list some ways that a wise woman can build her home up. Gracious, kind, loving, joyful, warm, affectionate, and generous. So I've added some on that. Are you a wise woman who is building her home up, or a foolish one who is tearing her home down? If you are a single woman who has no choice but to work outside of your home, take it daily to the Lord in prayer, for he cares for you. Lay your requests at his feet and trust that he is working it out. Ask him for wisdom and search out possible ways for you to make money from home, for nothing is impossible with him. In the meantime, know that his strength and grace are sufficient. Do you know, women, we were not created for the workforce, mentally, emotionally, and physically. Men have 10 times the testosterone than us. They're stronger. Women have twice the stress-related diseases in the workforce as men: heart disease, diabetes, cancer, depression, suicidal thoughts, mental illness have all skyrocketed in women since they've left their homes for the workforce. We were not created for the workforce. But then people will say, well, what about nurses and teachers? Those are good jobs for being a mother, right? No. Nurses are on their feet 12 hours a day. Their shifts are long and exhausting. It takes them a day after to recover from that. They're gone for one day from their family, and the next day they're exhausted and recovering. Usually they work 3 days a week, 2 or 3. And so that's a lot of days to work and then to recover. And it's a hard job. They have to wear masks now all the time. They have to be updated with the shots. They have to be under fluorescent lights all the time. It's not a healthy atmosphere. It's stressful, highly stressful. We just weren't created for that kind of a stress. Yes, I'm thankful for the nurses out there that are doing that, and no, all women are not going to quit the nursing field. I'm talking to godly women who want to do God's will. God's will for you is to be home full time. What about teachers? I was a teacher. It was exhausting having a classroom full of children who I had to teach all day long, keep under control, and then try to come home and be a wife, mother, and a homemaker. It was impossible. So, and one woman I know who had 4 children, taught all through her child rearing years, and said it was like, she told me it was like a marathon. Who wants to run a marathon? I never have. And then some teachers at the local Christian school when I substituted there a few times, told me that they could tell children who were raised by full-time mothers compared to those raised by career women. The full-time, when raised by full-time mothers, were much more emotionally secure and mentally stable. That is scientific fact. And all of God's ways can be proved by science eventually, because we know that his ways are perfect. So do all you can to be home. I'll put a link below for you who have husbands who want you to work in the workforce. Read The Way Home by Mary Pride. She has all those stats in them and why women need to be home. And pray, plead with the Lord diligently to be able to come home, to be the wife, the mother, and the homemaker, and the keeper at home that he's called you to be. With God, all things are possible. Okay, talk to you later. Bye-bye.